Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and before we begin with today's review, first of all, last night was the long-awaited national final for the United Kingdom, the first of its kind since 2010, I want to say, and even then it was an improvement over 2010. And I do pledge to review this song just as fairly as I would for any other country, with no particular bias just because it's my home country. But before I actually begin with the review, I do have a bit of a rant to go on, so please do bear with. First of all, I do want to congratulate the BBC for the show on behalf of the British public, because although it was relatively safe, it was an unambiguous step in the right direction towards making Eurovision a serious household name in the UK again. With enough time, patience and perseverance, Eurovision You Decide could become a strong, powerful and formidable format if they choose to stick with it. Secondly, I want to congratulate the 6 finalists for being 1 gracious winner and 5 gracious runners-up, which leads me into my one point of contention that I wanted to bring up before getting started. I am absolutely disgusted by the sour grapes and vitriol displayed by a fair few of the artists who did not successfully make the final show. How unprofessional can you be to throw a babyish hissy fit just because the BBC decided that your music wasn't right for the show? How immature do you have to be to decide that it's everyone's fault but your own that your song wasn't chosen? 2 examples of people who've done this come immediately to mind, and in the name of professionalism, I won't name either of them. But they fell foul of exactly that, and it sickens me. It's unprofessional behaviour. It's simply not okay, and I could rant for ages about how unprofessional that behaviour is, but I'm not going to. I'll leave that emotional baggage at the door and get on with the actual review, and resume celebrating just how right the BBC have got it this year. Of the final shortlist, the British public have chosen Joe Woolford and Jake Shakeshaft, or is it Shakeshaft? You see, my inability to pronounce names extends even to my home country, and the song You're Not Alone, which, surprise surprise, is in English, so no translation necessary here. Now, my initial thoughts on the song, honestly, I was pleasantly surprised that this won the national final. Given the fan hype, I'd all but written off everyone except for my personal favourite, Bianca, Darlene, they couldn't make up their mind how to pronounce it, maybe, and of course Carl William Lund and his craptastic lack of staging. I mean, seriously, he just stood there for 3 minutes, how boring can you get? But all things considered, I think it's fair to say that, in the cold light of day, this was probably the best choice, since it's the most accurate representation of current British music of the 6 finalists. Perhaps now, all the people who bitch and moan and clamour for the likes of One Direction to represent us can shut up, because this is the kind of style, more or less, that they had in mind. We'll see how they fare in Stockholm, and then we can all move on with our lives. So, what are the good points of this song, then? Well, as I said, the fact that it's an accurate representation of what the relative youth of Britain is listening to, that is, the current generation of soon-to-be enduring Eurovision fans, that's already an immediate plus, especially compared to songs like Believe in Me, or Still in Love with You, or Love Will Set You Free. And as a part of that, the song's quite clearly not intended to be a joke. It's not intended to make a mockery of the contest, which is a very popular genre in the UK, unfortunately. It takes itself and the contest as seriously as is deserved, which, for the UK, is a huge step forward. I cannot stress that enough. Additionally, on a completely unrelated note, what pleases me about these guys is not only can they perform live vocally well, but they can do so even under duress, whether that's the pressure of competing and not yet having won, or the nerves and high emotion of having won the national final. They're humble, but they're unflappable, and that is very important. I've praised other artists who have been chosen for this year's Eurovision season for exactly the same thing, and just because it's the UK doesn't mean that they're any exception when it comes to being praised for being live performers. And through all this, they can still harmonise with one another more or less flawlessly. And as a duo, that is very important. That means that we're not going to have a repeat of 2003 in May. I know that is ancient history by now, but to any British Eurofan, it endures as our nation's greatest failure that we are never allowed to forget. But, getting back on track, this song's main draw is its memorable hook, which is equal parts simple words and vocalization, meaning that anyone can latch onto the tune and sing along, even if they don't speak or understand English all that well. And finally, and more generally, the song just exudes happiness and positive energy. It's a feel-good song without seeming too terribly throwaway or niche, unlike last year. If it were to come up against the likes of Ukraine or any other song of a relatively serious nature, it'll stand out simply because it's yes, we're in this together, we're going to pull through, everything's going to be okay. It's that sort of message, which It's nice to hear, because positivity. Now as for the bad points. Well, I'm not going to delude myself. I know it may be representing my country, but just like any other song, it has its faults. Nobody's perfect. So first and foremost, it doesn't really leave any particular kind of super incredible, knock the breath out of you kind of vibes on first listening. It's fresh, upbeat and happy, yes, but it's not earth-shattering. Then again, none of the final 6 were, so that's almost a moot point, as they say. In short, it's a very safe song, as a coach from The Voice might say. It doesn't take many risks, is what I'm saying, but I'm okay with that. It's part of the BBC's road to recovering the contest's image in this country. So if they play it safe this year, they know where the battle lines are, so they can build on it in future years. So, to that extent, it's not so much an entry this year as it is an investment in future years. Still though, safe songs tend not to impress. Secondly, and this is more of a fear than a criticism, having seen them at the national final, because they were fine at the national final, but I still worry. This sort of song demands an energetic live performance, meaning they could go over the top and risk their voices to deliver the right choreography, like France did in 2014 or Greece in 2007, for example, or they could go the complete opposite way and not deliver enough live staging in order to definitely confirm that their voices will be fine, like Carl William Lund in our national final. Now, in Eurovision You Decide, they did strike the right kind of balance, but it still remains to be seen how they're going to upscale that for the stage in Stockholm, which will of course be bigger and a different shape. So hopefully that balance will remain, and they won't look boring or sound like they're out of energy. They won't look lost on the stage, considering, the national final had a comparatively small stage. They're going to need to upscale it so that they don't get completely swallowed up by the space around them, And finally, and this is a super petty point I'll readily concede, the song contains the phrase, "come alive." That happens a lot in pop music, and it really bothers me. And I know this is probably just a me thing, kind of like the Ireland sun light point. It's the same kind of, it bothers me and probably only me, but the phrase is "come to life." I know alive has the same etymological roots, but it just bothers me. And I could only get away with making that criticism for an English-speaking country, but that's just a minor problem that I have, and it's because I'm crazy in the head. Now, rating out of 10. Well, it's not easy for me to call for this one. First of all, no matter what I say, people are going to say, "Oh, no, you're being too kind because it's your own country." No, I'm not biasing it just because it's the UK. If we'd picked a shit song, I would quite happily have called them out on it. It's very safe, as I said, but there is something infectiously happy about them, about Joe and Jake and their song, and how uplifting it is, and how uplifting its message is, and all of that good stuff. So much like last year, the more I listen to it, the more I like it. That said, it is too safe to impress me. It's more, as I said, more an investment in next year than it is a competitor this year. So I'll have to cap it at a low to mid 9, but that 9 is because I'm an absolute sucker for happy songs, and because this song is a credit to the BBC and the UK public as a song that does, in every sense, represent the UK and its music industry of 2016. I'm proud of the lads, I'm proud of the BBC, and I'm proud of the British public for having selected it. Also, it's the sort of song where I could just put it on, go and do something else, and just sort of really happily kind of bop along to it while I'm doing whatever. It's a fun time. Am I not allowed to be happy whilst listening to my country's song? Now, compared to last year, this should be an easy decision. Now, I will say, I don't like it as much, but that's only because I absolutely loved Still in Love with You. However, having said that, You're Not Alone is the better song of the two, and definitely the better Eurovision entry, because it's nowhere near as esoteric. It's an accurate representation of the British music industry of now, and of the British public of now, and it doesn't exist in its own little world where time and logic don't apply. So this song, you can like it, and you don't really, there's no prior prerequisite for liking this song, whereas with Still in Love with You, you'd have to already be subscribed to that little world that it builds up for itself. And so, I love Still in Love with You, but I recognise it's not as good as a Eurovision song as this is. So, I like this song a lot. I also loved Still in Love with You, but this is better at being a Eurovision song. I'm not going to deny that. Plus, on top of everything, You're Not Alone has all the positive vibes and magic that Still in Love with You had, right down to the enthusiasm of the singers, but without coming across as a weird, gimmicky, out-of-touch offering. So, like I said, I love them both. I am in the right position to enjoy Still in Love with You, but I recognise that You're Not Alone is better, and I like it anyway, so all is well. Now, it doesn't have to qualify, but if it did have to, would it? My initial thought is borderline. This song, to me, sounds like something Denmark would send, but then if Denmark were to send it, then it sounds like something Denmark would qualify with. And if this song had to qualify for the UK, I think it would certainly come close, but as for whether it would actually make that top 10 in whichever semi-final, I honestly don't know. And that counts for how well it'll do in the final as well, especially under the new voting system. With the right performance, this song could appeal to the juries and to the public on two completely different planes, and then land anywhere between 7th and 15th maybe. But it could just as easily get completely washed over by the likes of Iceland or Ukraine or Switzerland or maybe even Germany just because of how much their songs stand out stylistically. I think it all comes down to the running order and the live performance and possibly even what they use in the recap, although as a safe song, the recap slot won't make as much of an impact as it would for, say, Ukraine. I think that's the trade-off between a safe song and a stylized song. I don't think it'll finish in the top 3, but I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket. It will finish in the top 26. But I think it'll be either the lower end of the left side of the scoreboard or the higher end of the right, depending on how people feel on the night. But in any case, I will say congratulations, BBC. You've proven that you can still take it seriously. In Guy we trust. And I will also say good luck to you, Joe and Jake. Do us proud in Stockholm because, well, I support you. Is that enough?